Hey guys, it's Dione. So, I want to begin our conversation about hearing the voice of God. And before we jump right into that, I want to talk about the power of asking quality questions, specifically in prayer or as we posture ourselves to hear from God. So, in Isaiah, the Bible tells us that God's ways are not our ways, his thoughts are not our thoughts, they are way higher than ours. But that does not mean that we cannot know his thoughts or know his ways. And the way that we can know it is by asking him. So in Matthew 7, the Bible tells us to ask, seek, and knock. Ask means to desire or to crave. It's a picture of being hungry for something and needing something. To seek is to pursue, and to knock is to persist. Okay, I'll get into seeking and knocking later, but today I want to just talk about the power of asking quality questions. So first, before we set ourselves to hear the voice of God, we have to come before him in full faith and expectation, believing that he would speak to us. Why? Because we are beloved sons of God. Okay, we're in that place, we know our identity, and when we go before our Father, we come in faith that we can hear his voice. He will speak to us. We will recognize it, and it will not be difficult. Okay? So, what asking does? First thing asking does is provokes response. Okay? So, by nature of asking someone a question or by asking God a question, it postures us to stop and to listen for his response. Number two, asking engages God's mind, okay? It provokes his wisdom and his logic to be revealed. We cannot go into hearing the voice of God and into prayer with presumption, with assuming we know what God is going to do. No, we have to read his word and we have to engage with him. We have to ask him, Lord, what is your wisdom? What do you say to this? What are your thoughts about this? So again, power of asking is that it engages the mind of God and it reveals his wisdom. A third thing that asking does, asking communicates value. So it tells God, I value what you say. I value your voice. I value you. I value your perspective. So it communicates value. Asking, it also creates an environment where it is okay to check in, adjust, and change when necessary. So it's not this rigid kind of thing, as far as hearing the voice of God. Yes, we want to be earnest. Yes, we want to be accurate, but it's not like, if I didn't hear God right, then I'm a false prophet and I'm going to die. Like, no, it's nothing like that. We're learning to hear the voice of God. And so it's important that we ask to create this environment, right, where it's okay to ask. We don't have to be embarrassed to ask. And then it's always okay to check back in and adjust. We in him, we live, move, and have our being. And the Lord is moving. We should be progressing, going from glory to glory in him. And it is wise to check in, from time to time and ask God, is this still the correct way that you want me to go? Is this still the job that you want me to be in? Is this still the business you want me to run and participate in? Is this still the ministry, the local assembly that you would have me to serve at? It's just great to check in and say, God, is it still this or is it not? Okay, so we want to be open and free to ask God anything because we're his sons. Okay. Another thing that asking does, asking questions can reveal what's in our heart. So this is kind of flip side when God asks us a question. So like in Jeremiah 32:27, when God asks, is anything too hard for me? When God asks questions like this, guys, he's not asking because he needs an answer. It's more so, to expose something that's in our heart to us so that we can come into alignment with the nature of God, okay, and bring our mind and our thoughts to a higher level of thought, of thinking, and operation that's pleasing to God, all right? So here are some questions that you can ask in your time of prayer or when you're practicing hearing the voice of God. Just a few things, okay? So we've been doing a talk about identity. We're still coming into that, who we are as sons of God. So some things that you can ask. God, who do you say that I am? Pretty simple, straightforward question. And then you listen to what he will tell you. Sometimes it may be single words. a list of words you can just write down. He may show you an open vision. He may show you an image, a picture, right? You want to capture that, write it down, journal, whatever you need to capture what he's showing you. But just be open to hear and don't second guess it. Just write down everything that you hear flowing through your spirit as you ask this question, right? Because again, asking question provokes the mind of God. Okay, it reveals his wisdom to you. So, another question, who or what has mostly shaped my beliefs about myself? Listen to see what he tells you. Why do I exist? What is my specific purpose? Another question, what is my role or assignment in the earth? What does your future for me look like? This is going to God, saying, God, what does your future, what does your expected end look like for me? And listen to what he says. Now, once he says it, you got to be willing to obey it, but we'll talk about that another time, okay? Another question, what is hindering me from realizing that purpose, that expected end right now? Ask him, God, what is hindering me? What is holding me back? What is keeping me stuck? What is keeping me from advancing? And see what he tells you. You could also ask, what scripture is relevant for my life right now? And see which word he would give you. You know, what Rhema right now word he would give you for you right now. So those are just some examples of some quality questions that you can take to the Lord as you're learning more about yourself and you're learning more about him, and as you're posturing yourself to hear the voice of God. So before I go, there are two types of people that we usually run into when we are training to hear the voice of God. Usually two types, okay? So type number one, these are highly logical people. They tend to reason away impressions. They're very left brain dominant, very analytical, and they tend to reject inspired thoughts or thoughts that come from somewhere that they're like, I don't know where that came from. That was not my thought. They will tend to push it back. So some of the common blocks to hearing God for this group of people is unbelief. It's a skepticism, right? I don't really know if I can hear. Yeah, that's going to make it difficult for you because you have to come to him with faith and expectation. So control, okay? If you have to know everything and be in charge all the time, it's going to be hard for you to hear from God typically. And then the third thing is fear, because fear brings torment. It's going to paralyze you and it's going to make you nervous to even take the risk and step out in faith, okay? You kind of have this thing about, what if I hear wrong? What if I miss it? And that just totally it blocks your hearing. It blocks your ability to hear God. Okay, so for this group of people, you really need to meditate on faith scriptures. You need to deal with your control, deal with your unbelief, deal with your fear. Go to the Lord about that. See what that stuff is rooted in so you can really hear and be confident. Okay, so the second group of people that we typically run into as we're training people to hear from God, these people are intuitive. They're kind of naturally spontaneous. They are spiritually sensitive and open. These are the more right brain creatives, right? Dominant right brain. But their challenge area is that they typically do not discern what voice they are hearing. So this group of people oftentimes will say everything is a God said, God told me, God showed me everything, right? And it's like, did God tell you everything? Did you check that against the scriptures? Were there 2 or 3 witnesses? How did you filter that word? You know, they tend to lack the discipline to test the spirits to see if they are of God. And so these types of people can be resistant to feedback because they view it as rejection. So a lot of times these people, because they are, kind of free, kind of open, a lot of times they get rejected and they get ridiculed for that, because in our culture, it is kind of more left brain, it's more logical, but these people are creative and they really naturally tap into the mind of God. And so because of that, they often receive a lot of rejection. And so if you give them feedback and try to, constructively bring them in and challenge them to test the spirits and to try everything by the word and confirm it, sometimes they can receive it as further rejection. So this group of people, you really got to sink into the love of the Father. Know that you are a son of God. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to hide behind God told me everything to try to prove that you're legit. You just have to really sink into your identity as a son. And if a a person has a choice to believe your words or not. Okay, so those are typically the two types of people that we run into, and really we need a balance. God gave us a brain. He doesn't want us to throw it out. He told us to be transformed by renewing our mind, not dumping our mind. So there is a place for logic, but we have to make sure that it's the wisdom and the intelligence of God, not human wisdom. And then there's also a place where we do need to be free to move in the spirit, where we are confident when we hear the voice of the Lord. It's the voice of my Father, because I spend time with him, I know him, and I can just move out in it and not be nervous and not be fearful, but I can trust that I know my Father's voice. Okay, so again, this talk, just really quick, wanted to talk about the power of asking quality questions in prayer, and just to go over two types of people that we find when we are training people to hear the voice of God. So next talk, we will get more into the specifics about hearing the voice of God. So I hope this has been helpful. Until next time, have a good week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.